We have no select board requests. Am I looking at the, yeah, I am, okay. I think the wrong agenda was posted.
Okay, I didn't actually see.
That's why I had asked if it's the right link when I emailed you yesterday, Tom.
The, so this looks like it's the agenda. So the agenda you sent Ellen was correct. But the one that was posted is talking about the noise ordinance with Chief Kersey.
Yep.
So that's an issue. Okay. So what should we do here?
Hold on. I think we may be able to get by on a technicality, which would be appropriate for us.
Yeah.
Yes, go down to item 6. And
Item
it says
6.
on the schedule for today
Oh,
is
yep.
meeting with Chief Bagman and Kathy Schofield. So
That's
we're covered that way.
So yeah, let's go down to 6 then.
But first, we need a roll call.
Yep. Tom Morali, present.
Carl Hummel.
Joanne Lamoth.
Christina Campbell.
All right. Thank you all. So let's start today with Kathy Schofield, who's here to discuss the elected appointed bylaw that was passed via citizens petition a few town meetings ago. And I'm just going down to the I need like that computer from Minority Report where I can just but the one that prevents certain elected officers from being appointed to other boards. The reason you were called here today, Kathy, is because it was your citizens petition, correct?
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I authored the petition.
Yeah, and before we made any determination, so yeah, it's section 12, in chapter 2, or sorry, chapter 3. Yeah. So we just wanted, before we made any decisions about our recommendations on that section, we just wanted to get your insight as to what your thoughts were underpinning the citizens petition, and why those specific boards were picked.
Well, when this all came to be, when I decided to author the citizens petition, it was because we had a lot of, maybe call it cross-pollination between boards. And it was locking out a lot of new faces, new people in the community to serve on different boards. Sometimes it's best to cover the town when conflict of interest arises, and there seem to be instances where that was that was a concern for the people of Mendon. So I pretty much, based on that feedback, decided to bring it forward and, you know, and the voters voted for it because I think they felt as though, it was important to have new people, joining these boards, new perspectives joining these boards. Sometimes it's good to get fresh opinions and different ways of looking at things. Did I answer your questions? And if you have questions, please ask away.
Yeah. I just my question for you was why those specific boards were picked.
Um, I think that is more based on conflict of interest. If you're serving on the select board, you might be inclined to push things through, other boards. I mean, you could be very influential, as we've seen in this town, so you know, planning and zoning, kind of go hand in hand. So if you're, you know, if somebody prefers to see something go through, they have that influence over other board members.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Kathy regarding the spirit? I would call it the spirit of this
Yeah.
citizens petition.
I'll take this because if we do decide to come before a town meeting with proposed amendments to this, we certainly want to make sure that we would have you on our side as the person who came up with the original one. One of the consequences of the language in here, which we ended up having to have a long conversation with town council about, was because there was no language about when this would take effect. And since I was on the Concom chair, there was a big question about whether Damon Tinio had to end his term as of adoption or whether he could serve his term out. So one thing we would like to do is add clarifying language to say, no, we would expect members to be leaving immediately upon adoption of the bylaw. Is that something you would be in favor of?
I believe that was resolved.
Oh, it was resolved then, but
Yeah.
if your original intent was that no, they should leave upon the adoption, we would be able to add the appropriate language to make that happen if we added additional committees and boards to this section.
So out of curiosity, what would your thought
Well,
be?
there are two different things, and this will tie in with the discussion that Tom will be leading on our town org chart and the difference between boards and committees that do administrative work, executive function, judicial function, and legislative function. My initial proposal is we would say any elected committee, which would be select board, planning board, uh, board of assessors, and any appointed committee that is appointed by any of those as well. And that way it's not specifically targeted. For example, you mentioned that the planning board and the zoning board and the Concom are all in the same chain. Well, so is the Board of Health in there. Someone building a lot has to also go to the Board of Health. So at the very least, that might need to be added in as well. One of the things that we would be looking at when we go over Tom's breakdown is to say, do we want to specifically target certain types of committees that are people who are elected to, and then generalize it. So it's not just specific to these four different ones that are mentioned in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a greater impact when you're moving from planning to zoning, and the same decision makers in that mix. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's important to weigh the pros and cons, like you said. and, determine whether or not that's something that would be beneficial on all levels. I mean, I think, on top of just the spirit of, trying not to get people tangled up in, their own interest, is to open the floor to more interested parties. People, Joe Schmo from, Millville Street probably wouldn't get appointed on, on a particular position because he doesn't have any connections in town. Although he might be a big benefit to the community by bringing in a new perspective. So, I mean, and I think a lot of people hoped it would inspire more people to run because there was a chance that they could actually sit on a board and make a difference.
Let me ask a question. Kathy, do you see any immediate cons to doing it the way that Carl laid out?
I don't believe so. No.
Do we have any other questions for Kathy?
Not on this matter.
Uh-oh.
Well, we
Jeez.
have you here for.
That's
There's
ominous.
another.
I mean, my own thought. I think Carl's proposal largely makes sense for me personally. I'd want to look at again, like where different boards derive their authority from. At what point boards are, like Kathy mentioned, at what point people making the same determinations on the same things? Like if someone goes from ZBA to Concom, they're ruling on the same thing as well, just like they are at planning board. So, that might certainly be something to look at, or Board of Health. Like we don't want people to be essentially approving the same project over and over again. It's kind of like the way I view it is it's kind of like if the same judge was the same judge throughout the entire appeals process. If somebody somebody was president and wanted to do a certain thing and a judge told them no, we don't want them to go in front of the same judge again. Not saying that's anything related to any matters going on right now, but just saying just imagine on the local level it's kind of a similar thing in my perspective.
Yeah, and it's not anything that doesn't happen in every single town. There are certain people
Oh,
and certain
absolutely, but our goal is to make things our goal is to look at Mendon's bylaws and see what kind of tighten up Mendon's bylaws, and I think this is one that is a really good, has good intentions behind it. It's a great idea, but we could tighten it up so that it's more broad and/or has some very logical underpinnings to it as to why certain people are allowed on certain boards, so there won't be any questions.
Yeah, I understand that.
Two other related comments. First, if you know anyone on Melville Street or any other street in town who wants to be on our bylaws review committee, have them submit their name to the select board.
I mean, I'm on
that.
Millville Street, but I think
Oh, is that why she picked it?
yeah.
And the second one is that if you are interested in producing another citizen petition, or if you hear people talking about it in town, one of the reasons why I twisted the select board's arm on having us get created is so that we can review the language with someone coming up with the citizen petition and make it so that it's not going to cause a lot of anguish and running back and forth with town council in the future.
Yes.
Or even if you come to us, we will see about having the select board approve it and whatnot. My goal is that this committee will serve for bylaws the same function that the FinCom does for money warrant articles, where the moderator says, okay, here's the warrant, what's the FinCom's recommendation? Similarly, if a citizen petition comes forward, the moderator would lean forward and say, okay, what does the GBRC think? And then we would say, yep, we're in favor of it.
Oh yeah, I believe me, I experienced quite a bit of anguish, so I'm not going solo.
Um,
Yeah. All right. Well, is anything else you want to run by me?
no, I think
Historical.
Historical. Okay.
what was
Um, Kathy's on the historical commission, and we were going to talk to her about the scenic road and
That's
tree
right, yeah.
cutting and stone walls.
Yep. What can I share with you? Obviously the scenic road bylaw applies to not every road in town. It applies to, I think there's a total of 15 now. If even that. I know we were definitely at 12 or 13 at one point. So I think we added 2 additional streets. So the objective with the scenic road bylaw, which every community has, and it's just the verbiage is different from town to town. Some are more protective, some are less restrictive. But obviously the objective is to retain some of the historic character of these, roadways in the community. So we have been working on trying to improve the scenic road bylaw. Specifically, one of the biggest obstacles is that nobody knows your historic roadways better than your historic commission. However, our participation in any of the decision making has pretty much been
Marginalized is the way
thanks,
I
but
would put it.
no, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Yeah. So, in the process, we've lost, some, not a ton. And that's why, scenic roads are elected or, the community votes on whether or not they want it to be part of that collection of roadways. Um, I mean, obviously we want to do it within reason. You can't save everything, which unfortunately in Mendon isn't much at all. So, we do what we can. We're also, a lot of the scenic road bylaws are based on the Public Shade Tree Act, which is a Mass General law, so that cutting of large trees is not permitted, unless the tree is sick. And, trees are very important for providing shade and oxygen and everything else that we need. It gives us a sense of place. It reduces wind. It creates cooling. So, obviously in the low impact development, in those bylaws, it discouraged when you go and clear things out. So, as far as the scenic road bylaw, again, it's some tweaking that needs to get done to the existing bylaw, and then somehow working towards a collaborative effort that is inclusive of the historic commission.
One of the things I make sure get written into our town purchases of conservation land is that there is something in there for preserving historical stone walls. But this is directly because I've been talking with Dan Byer and Isabella. We don't have anything for stone walls that are not on scenic roads.
Yeah. Yeah, if you drive up North Avenue, there's a fantastic barn foundation, and the owner of the property only owns part of that stone wall, and he's very worried that the rest of it is going to come down completely. So, I mean, it's a sizable ask, but what we're hoping to do is get to a point where it's negotiable, that people don't just come in and kind of tear everything down, but that we can sit down and discuss, is there an alternative? Just like we do with, historic homes.
So one of the things we would ask you to do is if you can prepare a red line document showing what changes you would like to make for the historic bylaw, we would look it over and then decide whether we think it should be, if we think it's worth doing, then we say, okay, which town meeting do we fit it into? We don't want to go to this May's town meeting with 25 bylaw changes. We want to
Right.
space them out.
Understood. I mean, there's minimal protection in place right now.
Mhm.
We would just like to, take it to the next step, to improve the language in it. So it's more comprehensive.
So
And
is, go on.
oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I have a couple of the drafts that we worked on, which I'm supposed to send to you, Christina, so she can take a look at it. And, we did a lot of changes, but then we get sidetracked with other items.
Okay, so I'm in charge of taking notes and action items. So I'm listing, Kathy will send Christina a red line document.
You got it.
So your
What's
name will get added to our spreadsheet.
right now, according to what we have in the general bylaws, I counted 20 scenic roads. Does that sound right?
That seems a little high.
Okay, you might want to take a look at it because in the bylaw itself right now, there are 20 roads listed.
Listed. Okay, all right, then it probably is. I mean, if it's in the bylaw, it's part of it.
Okay.
Are there any other actions that the historical commission might be interested in? I know that over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of back and forth on demolition permits. Do you think that needs to be tightened up? Are there other things that related to the historic commission's mission that you think might be served by modifying or adopting additional bylaws?
We did a lot of work with Lonnie Tinio in the past to make modifications to the demolition delay bylaw. It's a slippery slope for us. There's a lot of desire to develop. And, so far we've saved one house in the 12 years I've served, which is very discouraging. Those aren't good statistics. We've lost a lot. And as Mendon, we don't have much to lose. We have a lot of old farmhouses, old barns, either they're being neglected or they're just, being dozed. So, and, we're working on trying to get a little more footing in the game, but I don't think we're prepared to do anything quite yet.
Okay, nothing at this time.
All right. Any suggestions? So we're always open.
Any other questions for Kathy? Anything? Otherwise, I'm gonna dismiss you.
Oh, thank you very much.
But it's a public meeting. You can stay and listen
You're
to us
absolutely
talk,
welcome. You're
talk
absolutely welcome.
language.
I know. I'll tell you, I started watching. I'm like, oh, I should just tune into this more often. Yeah. As soon as I stop taking on extra projects, I'll be back.
Yeah. So
Uh,
we'll see you in about 10 years then, right?
All righty. Sounds good. All right. I will cut out and go have dinner.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for
All right.
coming. Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
having me on. And Christina,
Absolutely.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Talk to you later. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye.
So we have Jason Bangma, Fire Chief. Thank you for coming.
Problem?
And thank you for staying patiently.
No worries.
I know everybody's favorite place to be on is the General Bylaws Review Committee.
Yeah.
But I know you had a request that we look at the possibly reviving the strong chief
Either that or
designation.
I don't know if that's in the purview of the bylaw committee or just adjusting the bylaw as it is. So a little history behind it. It was adopted in 2018, the bylaw was. Prior to that, there was the strong chief that was adopted in 1951. So there's a lot of words in the strong chief law. If you guys have had the opportunity to read it, it's quite wordy. I'm just going to point out some of the issues that I can see with the current bylaw. I believe the intent was to mimic the strong police chief law that the town has adopted. It's chapter 4197A. I think it missed the mark a little bit. The first thing is section 1. It says establishes the fire department under the direction of the select board, whereas the strong police chief establishes the police department under the supervision of the police chief. So technically right now, the head of the fire department is the select board. We follow under them. We follow their direction. So that is a change from the strong chief law, both fire and police. So that was my first little issue with it. The second one is section 2. It says any members of the fire department, including the fire chief, may be removed or suspended or otherwise disciplined by the select board as provided by law. That's fully within their right. I agree with that. But the law that was adopted, which was the weak chief law, chapter 48, section 42A, says that the selectmen may make suitable regulations governing the fire department and officers and firemen thereof, and in the town which are not subject to chapter 31, which we are not. They may remove the chief or other officers at their pleasure. So basically right now, anyone that's not protected by a contract, if they look at a select board member wrong, they can be fired without a hearing. The strong police chief and strong fire chief both have hearings within it. Our union members are protected by their contract. They're up for a hearing if they are up for discipline. I am protected, but our call members, which is the majority of our department, are not protected in any sort of way. I don't see it being an issue, but there's a potential in the future that it could be. So that was that one. Section 4, it allows me to present regulations to the select board for approval. Right now, we have a 289-page document that we're reviewing for our policies and procedures that I will present to the select board for their approval. If they don't approve it within 30 days, it just goes into law. It goes down into the minute details of operating at a fire ground, which I'm pretty sure none of the select board have any history in firefighting, so that they'll probably just go ahead with it. So it just makes it sort of inefficient. So those are the issues I have with the bylaw. They would be addressed by going back to the strong chief, but if we were to switch up the bylaw to fine tune the language a little, that would be a little better suited and be closer to the strong police chief law that the town has adopted.
How did the town adopt that? Was it by a vote?
It was the strong chief law was rescinded May 5th, 2017. I believe that was at town meeting. And then the bylaw was approved it looks like special town meeting, probably 11/21 of 2017, then went into effect 2/28/18. That was right before the fire department became its own entity again. It was split from the police department. Prior to that, the police chief was both strong police and fire chief.
Yes, and I believe that this all of the stuff you are talking about is a reaction to having one person serve those roles and people in town deciding that that was subject to the appearance of abuse.
Yeah.
So I think that if it were now 7 years on, if we can come with a bylaw that you believe will allow you to run the department better, that it stands a good chance of passing.
Okay.
As you were hearing us talk to Kathy, the first step is for someone to come up with the red line document where it
Okay.
says,
Yep.
here's what it is now, and in Microsoft Word, you go through with the red lines and
Yep.
changes and
Yep.
things.
Okay.
Is that an action that you would be doing along with your 287 page document?
Yes, I could definitely do that. I have a list of the things that I would like changed already, so I can just incorporate that. I did meet with the select board last spring regarding the strong chief. I didn't feel it was a good time for me to push forward with that, being a new fire chief,
Mhm.
technically on probation within the first 6 months that I was a fire chief. So I presented it to them, and they heard it, they accepted it, but it didn't go anywhere from there. I think they were in support of it, but no one really got in the driver's seat to move forward with readopting the strong chief law.
And one of the reasons that the select board created our committee is so that
Yeah.
we can start the ball rolling on things like
Yeah.
this without it being a political football that the select
Right.
board has to deal
Absolutely.
with.
Yep.
Exactly. So I guess my other question, do you know any other town in the area that is written in a way like ours, or like you said, you think it was supposed to mirror the strong chief, but
The strong police chief, yes.
yeah, right.
All of our surrounding towns, to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure, are all strong fire chief. The chapter 48, section 42.
Got it. Okay.
There's some language that some people misconstrue, I would say. There's within the strong chief, it says full and absolute authority over the administration of the department. But the next line it says report to the select board time to time, and they can remove
Right.
the chief with a hearing. So if you read that one line, it seems very aggressive, but it all basically the same. It just worded a little strongly.
It sounds like it's to prevent the select board from doing exactly what you said they might be able to do, which is to fire at will a non-union employee. They'd have to go through the police chief, and if the fire chief didn't want to fire them, they'd have to fire the fire chief and bring in a new fire chief who was willing to do what they wanted.
Yep. Any other questions?
I've got nothing. Does anyone else?
Nope.
Nope.
So the action here would be when you produce a red line document, we would go over it and figure out which town meeting it would be presented at. We would work with you and our town administrator to come up with a PowerPoint slide that said, here is why we're making the changes, and with enough upfront explanation, it doesn't lead to a long and involved floor fight.
Yep. All right, I'll get that back to you.
Thank
So
you.
we probably won't get this for the May town meeting, but it's definitely something we could slot in for fall.
I
Okay.
know, speaking with the select board, something they might be open to is another special town meeting just for bylaw changes, but I don't want to I don't want to make that reality till it's
Oh,
a
well,
sure
then
thing.
we get only the real hardcore policy wonks at that.
Yeah,
Not all the people who worried about increasing their property taxes would not have to worry.
But, well, thank you, Jason.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye, Jason.
So let's move on into our ongoing review section. Pulling the agenda back up here. So the next, so that would be chapter 9, regulations as to streets, sidewalks, public places, and parks. Did everyone have a chance to look over that?
Why, of course.
Yep.
Yes.
What are some thoughts? Anyone have any thoughts on it? Stand out?
First one, section 3, it says you have to move if a police officer tells you to do, but unlike the previous section 2, it doesn't say what the consequence is for not doing so.
Right. That could be, you can see why that would be an issue.
So that would be something to ask Chief Kersey if he
Kersey.
wants to do something about that.
Right. Yeah, and something, something interesting that I discussed with the select board was, anything that's in the general bylaws, the enforcement is the police. Whereas anything in the zoning bylaws is the not that it necessarily pertains to this chapter specifically, it is the zoning enforcement officer. But that's just something interesting that stood out to me.
So-
In general.
So an action item for this would be someone ask Chief Kersey who wants to who's going to be talking to him next, or do we want to wait and bring it up at our next meeting with him in 2 weeks?
I would say, he's gonna be here. Maybe we can I can give him a heads up that that's gonna come
Okay.
up, so he's prepared.
Okay.
But yeah, we can definitely. That's a question for him, I think. Anything else stand out to anyone?
Yeah, where did they come up with $25 for the fines? I mean, that's
Well,
like,
This was my general comment, raise fines throughout the section.
yeah, it's like ridiculous. The $25 is like what?
Well, it wasn't back in 1960. Back then, it would
Probably
be the
not. No,
equivalent of
1960, that was a lot of money.
equivalent to $100 now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 25 is it's chump change. Yeah, so that's another thing that we
But-
can.
But
What
I would look at fines as something that the select board would give us input on.
Right. That was gonna say we could bring that up to select board.
I do have a question, and I'm not sure, maybe because I don't really know. You know how like they have like Rock the Block, or they did the town bicentennial, whatever it was, tricentennial, where they had alcohol and it was in a public place. Do they have to give a special permission grant so that nobody gets fined for consuming alcohol?
That's exactly what that section is there for.
Okay, all right.
I would assume that's what that particular loophole says, unless specifically permitted by the select board.
Yeah,
Isn't
I was
that where the every year they do get a permit for consumption, I thought.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
that's covered by that.
Yeah, section
Um,
4C explicitly says you're allowed to do it if you're duly licensed by the select board. They do not,
Okay.
the previous sections don't apply.
I also think section 7,
Yep, I noticed that too.
like when you
What's a
have
commercial activity, and is soliciting and fundraising considered a commercial activity is my question.
well, also when you have something like Rock the Block or the Mending Country Fair where you have vendors and stuff like that. That's commercial activity. And
Right.
that's taken place on town land before.
But at our last meeting, we talked about the JCs going out with the boot in the middle of the intersection in public way, soliciting. Do we need a soliciting bylaw? Well, we may not if we can look at this particular section 7 and say, in a definition that soliciting is considered to be a commercial activity.
Yeah. But that only applies to, I mean, that specific circumstance, I think, would be covered by Section 7. But if we're talking other real estate not owned by the town,
Knocking door-to-door salesman.
yeah, that wouldn't be covered by that. So I think we'd still need to look at a bylaw for that. So it sounds like the two action items here are to talk to Chief Kersey and talk to the select board about the fines. I can reach out to Chief Kersey.
So Jason's not here, so do you want to poke Jason or should I?
I can poke Jason.
Okay.
And then, all right. So unfortunately, I still don't have the org chart done. I'm thinking that's a project we're going to have to push out to the next town meeting, like for any changes related to that. I mean, I'm hoping to still have it done for the next meeting, but I mean, we can go over it, but I don't think we should really delve in and change anything until the next town meeting on that basis. However, I was able to knock out several of my action items if we want to go to the action items. Does anybody else have anything with this
If you
section?
could, nope, action items is this section. Let me bring that up.
So I did go to I did meet with the select board. And kind of explained a little bit about what we're doing. I think they're very interested in the noise ordinance. They are interested in us looking a bit at the they're interested in looking at us looking at the sort of organization of the town. They're very interested in us kind of meeting with the zoning bylaw review committee. I don't think that's something that we've reached out to or done yet. So perhaps we could see when their next meeting is and see if we can get on the agenda. I'm happy to talk with them and see if we're on the same page on some things such as the dirt removal bylaw. See if there's anything they've identified that might make more sense as a general bylaw.
Okay, if we haven't heard back from Anne, so you said you would ping her.
Anne did reach out to me and
good.
ask if this was we were trying to get everything done for this town meeting or if it was going to be an ongoing committee. So the one thing the select board did say is that the zoning bylaw review committee is more of a it is on the basis of a grant from CMRPC they're getting assistance with, so there is kind of a timestamp on it, like a time constraint on how long it's going to be active. So we probably want to meet with them sooner rather than later.
Two things that I moved over to closed, and I wanted to make sure people were okay with it. The noise ordinance thing, we are taking action on it, so I moved it to closed. And you did talk with the select board, so that got moved over here as well. So I just wanted to be transparent and let people know that I'm updating the spreadsheet that way.
Yeah. The other thing the select board did want, seem to be interested in is identifying anything that might be, well, like I was saying, stuff that is in the general bylaws, the only enforcement mechanism is the police. So that's why something like the dirt removal bylaw might make more sense as a zoning bylaw, because the zoning enforcement officer enforces it, but also they want us to be on the lookout for anything else that might make sense more in the zoning bylaws rather than the general bylaws. I did get a chance to draft language to allow for electronic voting. Um, 1 second to pull it up.
Go ahead and grab the screen share if
Oh yeah,
it's
I was
easier.
gonna. I have the Google Doc, but I was gonna post it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I just posted the link in the chat. So this is from section 15. I kind of cribbed Upton's. This is more or less what Upton did to update theirs. No, the red is would be the change.
The part I just highlighted is a little clunky.
Which part?
Votes by town meeting not to be used.
Yeah.
Not available, or town meeting votes not to use that method.
Yeah. I copied that directly from the thing Upton passed, so
Then they didn't have someone like me who wanted to
No.
grammar wordsmith it.
no. So I'm willing to accept whatever wordsmith you think is appropriate. But I mean, otherwise, like the general concept makes sense to me.
Mhm.
That we'll do electronic tabulations and electronic devices to tabulate, and if those aren't available, we default to our old method. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yep,
I think it looks good.
looks
Okay.
good.
So I mean, this can be one that I think we could put before the next town meeting.
Is the bottom paragraph going to be indented and be like a subsection of the section? I'm just looking at it. So like when it says like shall be the following process, I don't know if it format wise should just be like a
I'd
new
leave-
sentence
I'd
or
leave
if it
that
would
up
be
to
an
El-
undersection.
I'd leave that up to Ellen.
Yeah.
The town clerk will figure out what looks best. I put in chat my proposed revision since I can't edit the doc.
Okay. Let me look. And that would be in place of.
Votes by town meeting not to be used.
Okay. Yep. The determination of vote shall be okay. Yep. There we go. So this will be, I think, one we can move forward with for the next town meeting. Unless there's.
Yeah, and we have this at the very beginning as Article 1, even though normally something else would be Article 1,
In that way.
in order that the rest of the meeting can be run, and we've tidied up things.
Yeah.
It's also a good way to introduce the general bylaws review committee saying, yeah, this is this is one of the first things they noticed and said needed cleaning up.
So I did talk to Ellen about the state certification. She maintains that there is no certification process for these because they're not voting machines. They're tabulation devices. So no
Okay.
vendors are certified. So do with that information as you will. But also I did talk to her about the town elections. She does not see a need to change it. But she said if we did, we can change it to the third Tuesday in May. She says that it doesn't have to be linked to when the town meeting is. And there are oftentimes in the past where the annual town election occurred before town meeting. So she doesn't see them as linked. She doesn't think it needs to change because it's after 11 days after the first Friday. Just the whole reason for that was to put it on a Tuesday. So I don't know what everybody's thoughts might be.
Let's go back up to that section. Town meeting.
Great.
I'm perfectly willing to say it's the third Tuesday in May. That makes life a whole lot simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like she said they don't have to be linked at all, if we don't want to. Because it doesn't even mention town meeting in that. It just sounds like that's linked that way.
So the language that you're presenting in the Google Doc, which section is that updating? Section 11? No. Section 15?
15.
Yep. So you want to have us take a vote on approving your proposed language for 2.15?
Yeah, I'll accept a motion to change the language of.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Roll call. Carl, yes.
Christina, yes.
Joanne, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. So that
You
is
should
our
say
new
chair votes yes to make it clear.
chair votes yes as well.
I got lectured by Isabella for doing exactly what you did, and she said, "No, Carl, you have to say the words." Okay, so congratulations. That's our first actual thing we're going to put on our list of something
Hey,
that's ready to go.
we did it.
So do we want to do the same thing for updating section 2.2 to have town election set for the third meeting in May?
I'll accept a motion to change section 2 to state that town election can occur the third Tuesday in May.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Carl, yes.
Christina, yes.
Joanne, yes.
Chair says yes. Okay. Do we have any other action items to take out here?
I have an update on the one for Isabella. I met with her today. She prepared me a very nice packet of the bylaws for Nantucket, the bylaws for Uxbridge, either Uxbridge or Bellingham, and the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions model wet bylaw. So tomorrow night, I expect that the Concom will vote to hold a public hearing, the second meeting in February. We're going to do it slightly differently than I was talking about before because we want to get the bylaw language set up. And then the regulations are going to be much more contentious because that's where we would make major changes to the jurisdiction of the Concom. And so we want to give developers a longer period of time to come in and say, speak for or against the proposals. So I expect that Isabella, after we have a public, I will work with Isabella to prepare a red line document that we look at as a public hearing. If the Concom does that, then we would pass it to the GBRC saying, here's what the Concom would like to have presented.
Any thoughts on that? I think. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
You give your thought.
No, I mean, that sounds okay to me.
Okay. The goal is that we pass a bylaw that will not take a lot of time on the floor. And then the regulations will be the one where we spend a lot of time listening to citizen and developer feedback.
Right. Makes sense to me. And that way the painful part doesn't happen on town meeting floor,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak.
So if we're done with that, the next thing would be the upcoming meeting schedule.
Yep. Well, actually, we have the meeting minutes on here. Why don't we approve those
Okay.
first? Did everyone get a chance to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Who seconded it? I missed
I
that.
did,
That was
Christina.
Christina. All in favor?
Carl, yes.
Christina, yes.
Joanne, yes.
Chair says yes.
Great.
So next meeting, I know we're gonna bring Dave Kersey back to talk about the noise ordinance. And then we'll determine which ATM warrant articles are going to go before town meeting. At which point we can determine like our public hearing schedule and how we want to go about posting that and that sort of thing. Do we want to continue our normal review at that meeting, or do we want to dedicate just to tie up loose ends?
Two things. First, we may want to have a noise and light pollution ordinance combined. That's something Isabella mentioned that we thought. At the last meeting, we talked briefly about light pollution.
One thing I think, so that's a good idea. I mean, we definitely talked about that. So, do we have language for light pollution that we want to use? Is that something Isabel was grabbing?
No, I think it was just mentioned as maybe that's a good idea because
Okay.
they're both the same kind of enforcement mechanism.
Would someone be able to look up some language from a light pollution bylaw in the area and bring it to next meeting that we think makes sense for Mendon?
I'll check with Isabella on see whether she has any recommendations.
Okay. Then, oh, also, section 310, the dues of town officers. I know, Joanne, you said that no other towns have that.
Correct.
No, is that something, do we want to push that forward to delete at the next town meeting, since we all, I think we all decided that. I mean, my general sense was we kind of agreed that was unnecessary. Since
Here's my process recommendation. It goes on the agenda next meeting for us to make that decision. If we adopt it, then it goes on our bucket. It got tossed in the bucket of what do we want to do for May town meeting? What do we want to do for follow-on town meetings?
Okay, that sounds good to me. So when we put that on discussion for the next agenda. So why don't for next agenda, the way I see it is talk to Dave Kersey about noise pollution. Talk about combining it with light pollution with any language we might have from light pollution. Discuss whether we want to delete this at the next town meeting. Discuss what else. Discuss what else we want to have go on the May town meeting. Also, I'm gonna check back in with Isabella, Jason, and see if they have any updates for their action items, to see if they might want to present them to us at the next town meeting, or not the next town meeting, the next general bylaw meeting. And that can be our meeting when we determine what we're gonna recommend for the May town meeting. And then if we have time left at the end of that, and we so choose, we can go on to section 10, which is trailers or mobile homes, which is a nice little short one.
Okay, I think we also need to go back and do 8 and 9 because we skipped over them, but
oh, that's right.
They're not on the agenda, so we'll just add it in next. I'll make sure it gets put on the right agenda for next time.
Well, we just did 9 when we talked about the streets. You mean 7 and 8?
7 and 8, yeah, because I still have my comments from 7 and 8.
Yeah, let's put that on instead of 10 then.
Yeah, my comments here about things. The other, going down the list, governance, the finance committee stuff. One of the things in the minutes that we just adopted is that there is interest in the select board to work with the FinCom. Is that something that, Jason's not here, but is that something they're going to do, or we just watch?
I'll touch base with Jason between now and next meeting. So let's put a placeholder for that one.
Okay. All right. Let me
And if he says yes, I'll invite Mike or whoever from the FinCom to the next meeting.
We'd want the chair.
Yeah. Who's the chair right now?
It
was Mike Krager, I thought. Yeah, it's Mike Krager. I'll invite him to the next meeting. Should we?
Well, it would be the first meeting in March.
Sure. Okay.
just because I won't be at the next meeting, as far as the scenic road bylaw and the stone wall and the tree clearing and all of that, I suggest we probably push that out till the fall if like the schedule is going to be made next meeting. That would be my suggestion as far as those pieces, because I just feel like it'll be very rushed to try to get it on for May if it's the end of March and beginning of April that things need to be submitted. And I just feel like these particular topics they're going to need to be reviewed by a couple other people prior to being formalized by us. So I just feel like it would be way less rushed to push it.
I'd like to have our first town meeting script be nice and simple and it all passes
Yeah.
pretty much unanimously, and then we can get to the more floor discussion ones.
Yeah, I think
Either in a fall meeting or a special just for bylaws meeting.
Yeah, so like we should definitely push that one then. Won't be good for
Okay.
May.
yeah, let's hold off on that one. So the next ones should be pretty easy. Like the nice easy ones we just discussed was possibly deleting 10.
Mhm.
Do you want to add
Um,
the one that makes all the bylaws gender neutral to the May meeting? So we change that language, like the,
we think that's going to be non-controversial.
It's non-controversial, but it's a whole lot of work in terms of
Okay.
figuring
Yeah.
out what the line item is. Is that something Ellen did last time for when select board to selectmen changed to select board?
No, so last time I'm the one that did it through a
Oh,
citizens
okay.
petition. And all I did was I had the language I used was all mentions of select men in the general bylaws is changed to select board. And all mentions of select men in the zoning bylaws is changed to select board. And I did like, I also included terms that like were. And so like when that happened, when that was voted on afterwards, the markup, Ellen did the markup because it was just instructing the town meeting instructed all mentions of this word to be replaced by another word. So it was a simple matter.
Can you come up with the similar language for gender neutral?
I absolutely can.
Okay, so another action.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that for next meeting.
yeah, I think we should make the May meeting, like Kyle said, non-confrontational so that they like us and not.
I just remember last time when I it did cause some controversy, so that's why.
Well, plus isn't May the budget meeting, so they're already out there with their knives ready to stab anything. So you really don't want to give them anything more.
Right. Absolutely. Never mess with people who are voting on tax increases.
Yeah.
2.5 overrides.
Yeah. So I mean that sounds like a good agenda to me.
Yep.
If we got nothing else, I'm okay to adjourn.
Yep. Okay. I move we adjourn.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second.
Did Joanne get in there?
It doesn't matter. Either one of us. It's no.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye. Carl, aye.
Tom. Oh wait. Nope. Oh wait.
Christina, I.
Joanne, I.
The chair says yes. And just so
Okay.
we're clear, it's going to be February 26th.
2 weeks from tonight. Yep.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
You
Yep.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
I.
Bye-bye.